In this episode, it's all about HEX brand camera bags. This is TWiP. Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of This Week in Photo. Today, we're going to be talking about something that every single photographer on the planet has obsessed about at one time or another. And we're not talking about lenses, we're not talking about lights, we're not talking about camera bodies, we're talking about bags, right? We obsess about bags and we can never seem to find the right bag, right? There's always something missing, or what if it just had this more space or less space, or more bulky or less bulky, or waterproof or whatever. There's all these things that are variables in that calculus that we run through when we're looking at a new camera bag. And maybe there isn't a right answer, but here to talk about that is the co-founder of a company called HEX Brand. They make camera bags. His name is Trent Valladares. He's going to be taking us through the construction of some of the bags in their line, one of which I have here, a sample that they sent over. We're going to talk about it, and then maybe some future directions of what we can expect in terms of camera bag innovations in the future. Trent, welcome to the podcast, man. How are you doing? I'm
doing great. Thanks, Frederick. Appreciate the opportunity to come and talk with you.
Yeah, this is my pleasure. It's my pleasure to have you on, and thanks for setting up these bags. These are I'm excited, and I get excited about camera bags like my significant other over there gets excited about Gucci bags and Michael Kors bags.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can keep those. These are the kind of bags that I'm interested in, functional, and I can actually get work done with these bags. So let's start with a little bit of history of the company. You co-founded the company, and the company's about 10 years old now. You guys been around
Correct.
For a while. You've seen a lot of changes in the industry, ups and downs and all that. Give me the kind of the Spider-Man radioactive spider origin story for the company. Why did you and your partners start the company? And what was the problem you were hoping to solve?
Yeah, sure. So I started the company with my brother-in-law, who was my business partner, and we have a pretty extensive background in accessories and particularly bags. We had produced them under license for many different brands, for a long time. But we felt like we weren't really able to get our full message across, because obviously when you're designing for another brand, they ultimately have the say-so on how they market it and if they like a certain color and whatever. But we kept saying, to your point, so why does anybody need another bag line? And 10 years ago, this is a little bit of a different time in the landscape, but if you think back, there was a time where we went from having electronic devices and phones and things like that as kind of a luxury or let me show off kind of an item, to transitioning to where they became a necessity and they were really part of how you functioned every day. And so that's where we saw our angle, and that was probably the radioactive moment where we said, we have a lot of background in streetwear and fashion, and so we were coming from a different side of the camera bag space, and we put that together with the technological need and the need to protect devices on an everyday basis. And so we kind of brought those worlds together, and rather than segmenting and saying, okay, well, you have camera bags for photographers, and you have sporty duffels for athletes, and you have fancy bags like you mentioned, Michael Kors and these guys for professional use, and it kind of segmented the people into kind of buckets. And we just said, look, I think if I design for how I like to live, it's about having something that expresses my personality, that lives along with me. So I can take this bag, I need to be able to take it to work, I need to be able to take it out shooting, I need to be able to take it out on the town, and it should serve all of those functions. So that's what we tried to do with HEX, and I think it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, you know what? One of the things that we kind of talked about in our pre-interview was you don't want to be traveling to questionable parts of the world, or even your own country, with something that looks flashy and expensive, that
Right.
telegraphs, hey, hit me over the head and take this because, I can help you pay your rent. All you got to do is hit me over the head,
Right.
take this, and that's one of the things I love about these bags. They're like this one here in particular. I think this is the backloader DSLR. What is the model name of this one right here?
Yeah, you got it. It's the backloader.
This is the backloader, right? Yeah, and it's really well made. And one of the things that struck me about it when I pulled it out was there's a couple things that we can talk about, but one of the main things was the lining that is in some of the pockets, like the laptop sleeve area, and in the front pocket area, there's that super soft lining, which begs me to put my glasses in. Right. I don't feel bad about putting my glasses. It's the main thing is like, where do I put my sunglasses so they don't get, jacked up? And there are 2 slots for that in there. What are some of the other considerations like that? Those little tiny attention to detail things on these bags that that the average person may not notice that sets this bag apart from, one that you may just go pick up at, Walmart or something.
Sure, sure. Well, I'm always glad to talk about details because I think that is one of the big things that separates different brands, right? Is I think a lot of different companies can throw a bag together, and sometimes you see, especially with apparel brands, they'll put out bags, and it's always after the fact, and the bags are usually designed by apparel designers, and anybody in product design will tell you that you just don't get a great bag that way. The same way you wouldn't get a great, sport jacket designed by a bag designer.
Right.
So as far as the details, so you mentioned those pockets. That's really something that's been consistent with HEX since the beginning. So I mentioned that we always had this tech tie-in, and what you're talking about is on the front of that bag, there's a zipper pocket, and it's lined with a faux fur material. And the same goes for the laptop pocket, and they're padded. And so, if you feel them, that's exactly what's supposed to happen. It feels super soft. It feels like, a plush animal kind of a thing, plush stuffed animal.
It
And
totally does.
you want to put, right. And so you feel good about, hey, this isn't going to scratch my device. It's going to protect it. And it really gives you that I guess, direction of saying this bag cares about keeping my stuff clean, safe, not scratched. And so that's a great detail. To your other point, we do try to design bags that just look good, as opposed to a camera bag that's got MOLLE systems all over it and clips and cargo pockets and all of this stuff. While that may be great for packing a lot of different things, it also telegraphs exactly what you said, like, hey, come and get it. Mm-hmm. So we do try to keep our bags very slim profiles. We try to keep them looking like street credible bags. And of course they have to perform, and they do have all of the Corduras and EVA foam and all of this stuff. But if we can get you in and out of subways without hooking on doors, and if we can, kind of, I guess, lay low so that maybe the guy with the obvious camera bag draws the attention, then that's a good thing. And I think you'll see that through the bags. I mean, that bag that you have there, the backloader, if you look on the bottom of that, kind of the bottom front of that organizer pocket, there's a little Velcro pocket there, and there's a rain fly hidden in there. So like right kind of, right at that area there.
Right here.
So you can kind of see, right, a little hide and seek, little Batman moment.
Yeah, look at that. I had no idea that was in here.
So that's a great example of, like, it stores away, it's easy, it's hidden, but it still has a ton of functionality. And even though the fabrics are water resistant, sometimes you need a little bit more than water resistance, and you can pull that rain cover out and really take care of yourself. So those are some good examples of just that little extra detail that we try to put in.
Yeah. It's, and then the zipper quality, one of the things that photographers do is when at least I do when I get a new bag is I grab those zippers, because you want to make sure they're not going to get off the track, they're not going to move or whatever, and it's going to stay closed, and water's not going to get in there. What kind of zippers are you guys using on them? Because they feel heavy duty, but not chintzy. Right.
Yeah. No, they're real YKK zippers, heavy gauge YKK. And like you said, there's certain things that you just can't skimp out on, right? So even though you want to make a bag that's accessible price wise, the challenge for us as designers is to say, yeah, but it needs to function at the top of the game as well. So YKK zippers, you can see on that bag, it's genuine Cordura, which is, about the best ballistic nylon that you're going to find. And so we're always trying, whether that's our foam, like I mentioned, it's EVA foam, or you mentioned these YKK zippers, those pressure points and points of continued use and wear need to be on point.
One of the things that also needs to be on point is just the overall design and the look and feel. And I'm curious how when you're sitting down and you guys are designing, laying out one of these new bags, how do you approach it? Like we said at the beginning, you don't want a camera bag that looks too expensive, but then you don't want one that looks cheap as well, right? So how do you thread that line of not being hey, look at, because some camera bag companies out there, we'll talk about competition in a minute, but some camera bags out there, you can from a mile away immediately recognize, I know what that is. I've seen that camera bag and I know how much it costs, and I know that person probably has expensive camera gear in there. Which is, not bad in some areas, but in other areas, you don't want to be telegraphing that, like we said. How do you ride that line as a designer when you guys are with your design team of form and function and quality and stylishness, but not being too obvious about it?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, one of the things that we always keep in mind with design, like I said, being a founder and trying to come up with why the market needed a bag company anyway, you have to, first of all, trust your instincts. And that's what I would say to anybody building any brand, is, you need to be building stuff that you like, that you would use. And so then you can trust your instincts to say, well, if I don't like this, then I'm not going to make it this way. So that helps. We also have a background just personally in cleaner design, right? I'm a big architecture fan. I'm a California modernism junkie. And so all of those kind of cleaner lines play into, even though it sounds cliche, they play into that less is more kind of a vibe. So that's always a basic building block to say, how can we fit what we want to fit into this bag and still keep it lowest profile, slimmest, depth, easiest to maneuver around. So that's one area. And then the other thing that we do is we have pretty robust conversations with photographers that are out there. I am, blessed to call many great and talented photographers friends, and I'll hit them up and say, hey, we've got this new concept that we're thinking about. What do you want it to do? And they're very gracious with their time and their opinions, and they'll say, hey, we want it to do X, Y, or Z. And maybe somebody else has something else to say, because everybody has their specialty. So, we may be talking to somebody who really is an urban or an urbex photographer, and we might be talking to a nature photographer. We might be talking to a portrait photographer. And they each have different things to bring to the table. So when we look at product design, we'll try to, bring those things into the design. And then as we get samples, we'll also send those samples back out to these photographers and say, okay, well, here's kind of the first version, go use it, tell me what you think. And we get that feedback, and that kind of goes into our production cycle. And then I think the third piece is, we do have roots in streetwear. So I think that's one of the things that HEX brings to the plate that I guess more traditional camera bag companies don't. We can, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, we can make a gray and black camo with red accents, and we can do some things that are more streetwear inspired. So we can almost sometimes hide the fact that a bag is a camera bag underneath the fact that it is so kind of street worthy, that it can be loud from a color standpoint. Sometimes it's so loud that nobody would ever think that it's a camera bag from that standpoint either. They think it's coming out of a great boutique, in the Lower East Side or something. So those are the three kind of ways we look at it.
Yeah. Really, really, really cool. It's really interesting. And then on the front of each of these bags, I believe on all of them, there's this little this little guy right here. Can you talk about that and
Hmm.
why is that there on all the bags? And for the folks that are listening to this on the podcast, there's a little kind of rubberized tag that's affixed to the front of the bag that has a lot number, registered trademark, designed in USA, HEX, and the logo went on there. Is that just basically branding so that you know instantly that this is not a counterfeit bag? This is original HEX gear?
Yeah, you're exactly right. It has a lot to do with that. There are knockoffs out there. I mean, we once had a whole foreign, I guess they were a company, but put up a whole website. It looked exactly like our stuff. And, they tried to use some similar taglines. And, you do have to have these points of authenticity. So there's that piece. And because it's our brand label, we also, again, in the detail, we wanted to do something a little bit I guess cooler than just a woven label. So it is a laser molded rubberized label. So everything that's printed on there is actually embossed into the rubber and then printed. And then the other thing that we did is you'll notice if you turn the bag around, there's a smaller version of that label, like up here on the strap. And it gives that opportunity where, so you can see. It's easy to recognize, and it's kind of easy to be able to say, okay, that's a HEX bag, and people can kind of know at first glance, what somebody else is rocking.
Yeah, cool stuff. This is exciting. I love these bags. This particular one, it's a different size than the other camera bags that I have. It's not big. It's like a Goldilocks bag, right? It's not giant. 'Cause some of them are giant. It's like, okay, I could go, cover the war in this thing and be okay for 3 weeks. And then there are other bags that I have that are just too small. They're like for a day trip or whatever. This one it feels like it fits right in the middle. Is it designed that way? Like it feels like the purpose of this one is kind of like an everyday carry. I can take it everywhere I'm going. It's got a top access slot in there where I can just grab my camera with a lens on it, shoot, throw it back in there, zip it up and go. If I really want to shoot, I can open it up, the clamshell, and get access to all my stuff. It feels like I can, almost like I know what you were thinking when you put it together, or when you guys designed this, all the little bits. But then it's not too much. Like some bags are very gimmicky. They have different things on there just for the sake of having another marketing bullet on the sales page, right? I don't feel that way with this. Genuinely, I don't feel like this bag was designed to get me to buy it or invest in it. It feels like it was more designed for me, and it feels like I want to dirty it up. Right? It doesn't feel it really feels like, I'm just going to throw this thing around and it's going to survive. It'll be totally cool.
Right.
So on that, I was going through, well, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Oh, I just said that's great. I appreciate that because obviously you've had a bag or two. So,
a bag or two. Get it. I have a closet full of them right over there. Exactly. The graveyard. When I was sort of playing around with it, the material of this bag, feels rugged. Feels like I could beat it up and it'll be okay. Cordura. What is Cordura? Because there's a tag on the bag that says Cordura, and it, not knowing what Cordura is, that feels like at the gas pump, Techron added to your. What the hell is Techron? I don't know what Techron is. It must be good. It's more, So what is Cordura, and what does that give me as a photographer?
Yeah. So what that is it's a registered trademark itself. And so if you go back, I don't know how long it goes back, but obviously ballistic nylons were originally developed as a military product. And so some of these companies like DuPont and things like that have a lot of different registered genuine trademarks that at one point, I don't know, may have had a patent or something like that. But these were designed originally for the military. And so just like anything else, you would have, new versions and new companies coming out with their kinds of fabrics. And so Cordura was the intellectual property, the name that DuPont registered for this stuff to say, this is the real deal. It's been tested. It's been proven. It's very durable. It even is pretty durable against cuts and knives and things like that. So that's what Cordura is. It just lets you know, like, hey, for sure you're getting the real deal.
And then EVA foam, you mentioned that. The EVA foam, what's the magic behind that?
So EVA foam is just it's a way to identify, types of foam. And to be honest, I couldn't even give you all of the names that EVA stands for. There's some pretty kind of chemical type names, science-y. But there's cell foam, which is kind of like the foam that you might find. I'm trying to think of an example, but it's like that spongy type foam, and it's not. It feels
like
soft,
memory
but
foam.
if you really put
Is it not like
a little bit, yeah, a little bit. Like, and so if you some of that cellular foam, if you drop your laptop or something like that, it's really not going to have the resilience to to work out and protect your device. So EVA foam is a more dense foam structure. And so if you feel our bags and you feel the foam, you can probably see that it's not something that's just like squishy. When you feel it, it's like, oh, there's some firmness to this foam.
Yeah.
And that's in the cellular structure of the foam. So when you do drop something against it, it kind of will absorb the energy of that fall and compress a little bit for you, and then come back. So that's the difference with EVA foam.
And Trent, can we talk a little bit about pricing? And we touched on this a little bit in our pre-interview, but just from a layman standpoint, looking at the bag world, which you're an expert in, right? So I can go on Amazon and find shoulder bags and slings that aren't dedicated, that aren't specifically camera bags, and they'll be much cheaper made than, they're not going to have Cordura and EVA foam or anything like that, or embossing and all that stuff on them. But they're going to be like $20-$30 or something on Amazon, So, and I have a couple of those, and they tend to be rather disposable, right? But, they look good for a couple of days. When you look at that world from putting on your co-founder hat, when you look at that world of competition, and there's people, on Amazon, one click away, I could have that, or I could pay more and get this bag. Can you address that a little bit? Like the differences between those two worlds, pricing wise, quality wise, access wise, all that stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's very much like you find, it's the adage, you get what you pay for, right? Yeah. It's the same way where you can get, and I don't want to slight any of these folks, but you can get a Toyota that looks a lot like a Mercedes on the outside, right? But it's not a Mercedes. Right. And there are reasons for that. So with our bags, for example, if you buy something on Amazon compared to, and Amazon carries some great stuff too, but if you're buying a cheaper bag like you're talking about, what you don't see under the hood is you don't see the thread count on the weave, for example. Like you mentioned, of course, it's probably not going to be Cordura. So you're getting, you can imagine there's a billion places that weave nylon. So whether or not you're getting something that's going to hold up is a whole other story. They can make a black nylon that looks somewhat similar, but so the thread count, meaning like how many threads are going into the weave of that fabric for any per square inch. So you want to have a high denier count. And then the other thing that happens is a thread count also on stitch. So you could, along your straps or along your shoulder straps, it may look stitched, but you may only have, 6 or 8 stitches in an inch versus 20 stitches. So that's going to make your seams better. Whether or not you have bar tacking, which is on the inside and usually inside of the lining where there are critical seams, you'll have what's called a bar tack, and that's really kind of going back and forth, stitching and securing that seam or that connection point from the inside of the bag. So those are things just in the fabric itself and just how pieces are attached that if you're not paying attention, you don't see. But you do see as soon as you put maybe something that's a little bit heavier and you go to throw your bag over the shoulder and the strap rips off. That's when you see it.
Yeah, and your lenses go flying all over the place, right?
Exactly. So we always like to look at it as like, your gear costs some money. So if you think you're going to be okay putting it in a $30 or $40 bag, or even sometimes a more expensive fashion or trendy bag that's really not made for camera, right? That's the other side, is like, oh, I like the name of this bag, and so I'm going to try to make it into a camera bag. And then before you know it, your stuff is dented because it's not working right. So those are the things that happen when you kind of step outside, I guess, trusted brands.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then the there I have a list of questions I want to throw you. So this is cool. And just
Hopefully I have answers.
You will. But looking at just sort of at we've been talking about this bag, what was the name of this actual bag here? It is the backloader DSLR backpack.
Yep.
So looking at this bag, we've been talking about that one, but you guys have a whole long, like 10 years of products in there, right? Can you talk about that a little bit? Like who the individual products, not all of them, but it's kind of 30,000 foot silos of the different product lines and who they're for?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you mentioned, kind of our main camera bag line is something that we call our Ranger collection. And that's where we really focus specifically on camera. And we have a kind of a wide suite of bags. So like you mentioned, the backloader is that kind of middle-sized everyday bag. And you can see like the depth is really as slim as it can be and still fit real full DSLRs. I mean, it's literally designed along those lines. So you can carry quite a bit of gear in there, but it still stays, pretty slim. There's one size bigger than that that's called our cinema bag, which is a deeper bag to accommodate more of like a 1DX kind of a depth, more video gear. It comes with lumbar supports and things like that because the gear is going to get heavier, and a couple of different access points both on the side and the top, but a very similar construction to the backloader. So that's, like you mentioned, maybe you need a little bit more than your everyday type bag. You can size up to that, and you can really carry, your whole rig really in there. And then stepping down in size, we have some of our most popular bags called our Ranger slings. We have a sling and a mini sling. And those are really designed to be your kind of day trip almost bags, right? Where you've got all of your gear in your backpack. You've headed out of town for the weekend or for a hike. Yeah, that's exactly the one, the Ranger sling. Yeah. And so now you can throw your body and 2 or 3 lenses, depending on the lens. I mean, that'll fit a Canon 70-200 in there with a body, and that's the mini sling. Yeah. So now you're not carrying that whole backpack hiking through the canyon or climbing that building tower or whatever it is, and it gives you really a run and gun kind of a bag that's still structured without being clunky. So that Ranger sling is great for that. It also incorporates a hidden rain fly like you saw on the backloader. And then we have the mini sling, which is you showed a minute ago, which is a little smaller version of that. That'll hold like your small drones. It'll hold your mirrorless, little smaller form factor, camera setup. Great for a vlogging setup. And that can actually be worn as a waist pack too, which is kind of cool, a little fanny pack action. Cool. And then we have one size below all of that, which is our crossbody, which is like a square. I don't think I have one here. It's a little square, I'm looking on the screen, about yay big, and you can wear it across your chest or on the back or whatever. But it is still padded, and we do still have dividers in there, and that is really made as a almost for gals as a purse, and for guys as just a quick EDC where you can throw in your phone, your keys. You've got maybe a point and shoot camera. You've maybe got a tripod or even a selfie stick for the vloggers out there. Mm-hmm. A very capable little bag that gets you a really sharp price point to get into the brand and helps you kind of navigate your world. So to your point, we have a suite of bags that ranges from really the everyday, beginner / video type photographer to all the way up to a cinema bag. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it covers anything from the professional to the kind of everyday.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. I have the transfer to do. We were talking about before we started recording, the ritual when a new camera bag is in the house, there's the ritual transfer of your gear from one to the other and kind of rearranging.
Right.
So I'm in that mode today. I wanted to
Yeah,
switch
that's a
gears.
great mode.
It is. It's fun, right? I mean, you get to sort of
It's a
play
fun
around with
day.
it. Yep. So switching gears a little bit, I want to chat about sort of stuff on the business side of things. So first of all, competition, right? Like we mentioned before, there's lots of camera bag companies out there, some newer camera bag companies out there that are doing innovative things and being, reasonably or very successful with it. Who keeps you up at night? Like who is there someone that you feel like you're, looking to the left and they're right there and you're running to the finish line, or do you not pay attention to competition?
Yeah, I mean, so we're always looking at, always looking at the marketplace, right?
Yeah.
So as you mentioned, there are a lot of different bag brands, and I think honestly, I think there's room for everybody. I mean, we are, I think we generally play pretty nice. We're not here to, to be gnarly or to. I mean, life's too short, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think generally that's the way that the brands fit in, right? Some brands are, somewhat camera, but maybe a little bit more lifestyle, and they're designed for maybe the more casual shooter. Some brands have, kind of action sports tie-ins, or, like somebody like a Chrome, that has a very big bike tie-in, as not maybe so much a camera bag focus. So I wouldn't say there's anybody that we focus on as far as like really keeps us up at night, as much as just, it's always interesting to see what everybody's doing.
Yeah.
There are some brands that really focus on, hey, we've developed this new clip or this new buckle or this new magnetic thing or whatever. And I think we talked about a little bit earlier, sometimes those are great. And sometimes those are maybe a little bit, could be maybe on the marketing tag, where it's like we did this or we did that. And it may or may not actually give you any benefit or work any better. But that's just how some of the brands are, like you mentioned, some of them are some of them are crowdfunded, some of them have background capital. I mean, it's kind of a whole mix. So I don't know if there's anybody that specifically keeps me up.
Yeah, yeah. Looking at it feels like you said before, I can tell you have kind of a minimalist sensibility in your, the way that you're designing things. So I would guess
Right.
you're going to skew away from that. So it seems like there's two lines in the sand. One line is minimalism, functional, and then the next line is, straddling it looks good, but it's not. It's not a Michael Kors bag or a Gucci bag that people are going to feel, they're not going to look at it for the sake of looking at the bag.
Right.
And it's not a status symbol. But in some ways it kind of is, because the way that you've built the brand, having a HEX bag is kind of a status symbol. So that's an interesting, way that you've threaded that needle there.
Right.
You've got something that's recognizable, but not too recognizable. It's functional and gets the job done and attracts photographers from that standpoint, but it's not going to get them mugged, if they're out doing street photography at 1 a.m. or something. Right. So
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great point, and it's actually a pretty big compliment to me and to us that you would look at it that way, because it is, I think, one of the differences. You look at this, like you said, a bunch of competition, what does separate HEX? And I think that's one of the big things is that we do have a fashion background, a fashion and streetwear background, as much as we're creators as well. So, we're making bags that do thread that needle, where other companies are not gonna, it's not going to be legitimate or authentic for other companies to make some of the patterns or some of the colors that we can do and that people are looking for from us. And you'll see even in future months some new things coming along that are going to be very, very HEX, and you'd say like, yeah, that's not going to be able to be done by another brand, because they don't truly have that fashion side built into their DNA. And I think the other piece that HEX is different is that I think we're very plugged into our community, right? So photography, and you probably have seen this, has really changed over the last 5 years, 10 years for sure. And it's gone from being a relatively small club to a much more open format. And you can kind of maybe credit Instagram and some of these apps for that. And there's a debate, right? There's purists, and there's hey, are social media photographers real photographers? And there's all of these kind of things. But for us, I mean, I love the idea that it's allowing people to be more creative, and people that maybe didn't see themselves as creatives, and maybe those people develop into some really talented artists and photographers. But I feel like HEX is a great fit for that new. I don't say it's a new generation, because we have people from all walks of life and generations that use the bags, but it's a very forward-thinking brand. It's a brand that is about lifestyle. It's a brand that fits very well with we hear about work-life balance and all of these things that are going on post-COVID. It's a brand that goes there with you and says, like, this is a new way that we're doing everything. And you've got photographers that are climbing buildings because that's what they do. And HEX is going to be a bag that's going to do that. And you've also got urban explorers, right? Which, I mean, in Los Angeles here, you can take some great pictures in Griffith Park or up at Elysian Fields or things like this. And it looks like you're out on a hike. You just happen to have downtown Los Angeles in the distance. So anything from that to actually being out in nature and hiking, or out in the slot canyons or whatever it is, it's a little bit of that kind of a mentality where it encourages, I think, people to try new things and to maybe get outside their comfort zone.
All right, so let's switch gears a little bit and talk about just logistics and supply chain. So as we record this, it's we're nearing the end of March of 2022. Do you believe that? The end of Q1 2022 already.
Crazy.
Yes, it's ridiculous. The and as anybody who's been involved in this sort of thing, or business or shipping, knows that the supply chain world has been a bit of a fiasco over the last year plus, I guess, with prices skyrocketing, and we've had all sorts of changes happening, and we got to brace for more because of recent current events that are going on right now. So how is that affecting you and your company? And, I would argue, more importantly, me as a consumer, does that mean prices are going to go up? Does that mean availability and the product line is going to shrink? Where do you take the slack up from the supply chain deficiencies?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and super timely right now, as you mentioned. Yeah. I will say, I mean, it's rough out there, right? There's no way around it. The supply chain got really, really backed up through COVID, and that's for a variety of reasons, mainly because so many products or parts of products come from outside of the country. So even products that are made in the USA will often have components that are coming from somewhere else. And it's not all necessarily China. I mean, they really do come from all over the world. All the way up to finished goods coming. So you've probably seen your shelves at Target, like in the Target over here by me, every couple of weeks, like it's empty.
It's bare.
And so anything from that to just the products coming from all over the world for one thing. So I was mentioning, our Target shelves are often empty. There's issues with food supply. There's, all kinds of issues. And basically that came from, I mean, how we saw it is we have different components that come from all over the world. And so one place might be open, like, for example, the YKK system, maybe their poles come from a certain part of their manufacturing, and maybe that area got shut down for COVID. So, you can get the zipper coil, but you can't get the pole. And so when you can get the pole, now the country that's making the coil, is shut down. And then you try to get them in here, and now we don't have any containers, or we have less boats traveling, or there are less trucks happening because of all the different restrictions. So it just backs up the whole chain, and we're still a long way from getting out of that. Like I said, even made in the USA stuff often is really assembled in the USA, which is great, but you're still dependent on a supply chain. Even through the country. I mean, a lot of times it'll take us 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks, to really get a truck to move things to some of our customers' distribution centers, and that's just moving it from a U.S. city to a U.S. city. So there's a real, I guess, lack of, um, transportation options, and just seems like everything is less boats, less planes, and the prices, as you mentioned, are very, very expensive. I mean, the prices for containers are probably up, 5 times what they
That's
were
crazy.
when you're normally shipping stuff. So how does that roll forward? Well, now you've got maybe a container that holds, X number of bags, and now you've got to divide this freight cost through that number of bags, but the freight cost is 5 times higher, and it's basically been overnight. So what we try to do is, you can probably may not be able to see, but if you go back historically, we've had almost no price increases. I think we've had maybe one or two styles that we had to bump up a little bit. And that's just from us, we just try to find it somewhere else, try to offset it somewhere else, because we just don't, to the best of our abilities, we don't believe that the consumer and our customer can just wake up one morning and say, oh, I can pay 20% more for this project.
No, no, they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and looking at your prices
Exactly.
now, I'm on the website now. I'm showing it right now. The prices are reasonable, right? We're under $200 for the most part across the board for these camera bags. That is not what most people expect for a price, for a camera bag. They're normally a little bit more expensive than this, and you're still maintaining the price. And I think this is the one I have, right? Yeah, this is the one I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're still, despite the supply chain, we're not going to see this go up to say 229 or 230 or something like that. The 189.
We've been pretty successful at holding it in those places, and none of us have a crystal ball, right? But
Yeah.
but our focus is to keep these things to where the impact to our customers is as minimal as possible. And that's always been a plus of HEX, is that I think for the quality that we bring, we're extremely competitive price wise. But yeah, we try to take care of our customers, and I think that's just part of who we are. So
Yeah.
we'll keep trying.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough, right? So we're in the middle of it. So we're in the middle of a storm, hopefully the middle of
Yeah.
it, right? Not the beginning.
I hope.
Right? That's what we were saying during COVID. Yeah, I hope this is the end. We're at the beginning.
I hope so.
Yeah,
LA
no,
can't take a whole lot more. It's going to turn into anarchy down here.
I know. Yeah, escape from LA. Start filming that now. What does the future look like? I know that there's some projects I know you guys have going on. Like there's a HEX Photo Lab that you're deploying. Like, can you talk about what the future holds for both the bag line, and the I know it's not just bags on the line, phone cases, etc., but for the product line as well as some of the outside stuff that HEX is doing outside of bag creation.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned Photo Lab. We have a thing called HEX Photo Lab LA. We've actually run these in a couple of different places, like we did one in London and New York and a couple of places like that. But it's a great example of how we look at community. And I mentioned that, we are very involved. Like, we are creators ourselves. The relationships that we have or that I have are real relationships, not just a brand sliding into some DM somewhere saying, hey, we'd love for you to post about our thing or whatever. So, we always are trying to encourage community. So what Photo Lab LA is, and we started this in our stores downtown, is an opportunity for the local photography community to get together. You're showing a little bit of a video there.
Yeah.
And we bring our photo printer in, and we'll print your images for free. So, you come in, you airdrop them or whatever. We print them up for free. We have everybody being able to just hang out and relax, get a little bit of refreshments and talk. And I think that's a big part of it. I feel like there was a time where, especially at the beginning of Instagram, it was very much about like my locations and my settings and my presets, and like nobody really wanted to share that because that was like your secret sauce.
Right.
And now, like through stuff like Photo Lab, it really is about acknowledging each other's work and being able to say, wow, that's a great location. How did you get that in such low light? What were you shooting to get that, to happen? And I think there's a much more open exchange, and you see the walls kind of come down, and people realize like, hey, I really like these people. I like to hang out with these people. Why am I gonna, I don't want to be that guy. I want to be, somebody that's involved in the community. And beyond that, it provides an opportunity for people, like I said, who don't think that they're at a level. I can't tell you how many times that I've had people there, and maybe they'll come with their girlfriend, or they'll come with their boyfriend, or and maybe their significant other is the photographer. So they're printing stuff out, and we'll say, hey, why don't you print something? Oh, no, I'm not a photographer. I'm like, I'm sure you have photos on your phone. I'm sure you've taken some things, print something out. And they will, and it might take them 20 minutes to find something that they feel like okay to print out. But when they print it out, it's like, wow, being able to hold something tangible as your work, and then having other people in the room that can affirm what you're trying to build. It's a great forum and a great time every time that we have it. And you just see people, they light up, like I said, having an authentic print. So much time we never see our work except on the screen. Yeah. And being able to have that is, sometimes people are so stoked. It's like, they'll tell me like, I had no idea. I really didn't think I was going to react this way, but it's like so amazing. Yeah. So those are some events. And we actually have one. I know this is going to live longer than this, but we're doing one with our friends at the Ace Hotel on April 21st. This is 2022, and that's in downtown Los Angeles. Ace Hotel has always been a good supporter of us, and Moab Paper supports and sponsors that, provides the paper. So some great stuff along that way. Product wise, and I'll give you a beat here so you can cut if you want.
Yeah. No, this is good. No, perfect.
Because there's a compound 2-part question. So, I
yeah, this is good. I love it. Perfect.
So product wise, I think the direction that we go is, again, just trying to stay a step ahead, right? And seeing where the needs are. What are my needs as a founder of the brand? Because that's going to be part of what I put in there, and part of a direction that you look at. But something that you mentioned, and something that we've talked about as far as how people are using their devices, there's a trend definitely even away from needing to carry a laptop all the time, because things like iPad Pro and even some Microsoft Surface products are powerful enough to do a lot, especially in the creative thing. Programs like Procreate on the visual artist side are amazing. You just download this almost like an app, and I think it costs $5 or $10, and you've got this amazing digital connected art program. A lot of the artists that we work with, that's how they do their work. And the great thing is you can collaborate, virtually and digitally, almost like you were playing video games with your friends from all over the world. Yep. So the need for having maybe a bag that does everything that it used to, there's still that need, but there's a new need now where you can go with your iPad Pro and your camera, and you don't need a whole lot else. You might need a battery or two, a couple of drives maybe. And so having bags that adapt to that kind of usage, I think, is where you'll continue to see things from HEX. How can we give you as streamlined a look in as small a form factor as possible, that's going to, function and work the way you need to get your gear, that's going to carry the new standard tools, for how things are going forward. So I think that's kind of where you'll see us go.
I think you hit it right on the head, because I'm in that camp of people that are looking to a different modality of content creation beyond the giant bag with even a mirrorless camera and proper lenses and all that stuff. Because I tend to be, at any given point, I could be any number of things, whether it's a photographer, a videographer, I'm a podcaster capturing audio, I'm writing, there's all kinds of ways that I have to generate content.
Renaissance man.
Well, yeah, I call it the multimediographer, right?
There you go. I love that title.
Yeah, because photographer seems so limiting.
Trademark
even
This Week in Photo.
Exactly, TLC right there. But it's true, right? And we all are, and I think a lot of us photographers don't realize that they're content creators, right? And we have all these amazing tools now that do all this crazy stuff that Apple and whoever else are giving us to do this amazing stuff that we couldn't do before with these iPads and phones and, you know, the connectivity and, like you mentioned, the apps. I can produce a whole podcast on my phone these days, you know, comfortably and edit it, you know, video. I can edit it on my phone if I want to and publish it. So as a result, what does that look like on the loadout side of things? I want a smaller bag that is purpose built for my iPad going in there, you know, and all the little bits that I need to go along with it to record my audio and all that. And I still want it to look good and be secure, you know, the whole 9 yards. So that I think you guys are right on with that. That's skating to where the puck is going to be, right? Because I think it's kind of there now, but it's heading in that direction. And I think more and more people are waking up. I don't know if waking up it seems kind of flippant, but they're starting to realize that you can do pro level work using mobile devices these days. I don't even call it a phone now, but mobile devices, you can get pro level work done and have more fun doing it. So I think the bags and the gear that you take along to carry all this stuff should reflect that, right? So, and not be, oh, well, I have this smaller camera bag, I'm just going to rip out the dividers and throw my stuff in there and go. Wouldn't it be great if a smart camera bag manufacturer created purpose-built bags, you know, or gear to carry that kind of stuff and leaned into it versus repurposing old stuff that was for mirrorless and DSLRs. So
I think you said it perfect. I think, you know, our motto for the brand is equip the creators, and we always want to be supporting and encouraging people to create. But when you say that, that means, at least for us, that you need to be adapting. It's one thing to say we want to support your creativity, but like you said, sometimes brands will take that from a standpoint of say, we want to support you. You just need to continue to use the product that we already made. You need to kind of adapt how you want to live and how you want to create to the products that we already have. And we want to try to say, you know, let's look at how you need to work now, and let's look at how you want to shoot, and let's come alongside and support you with products that are going to make your life easier and not make you have to think about, all right, well, how do I make this kind of backwards compatible to bags that were designed 10 years ago? So it's a good point.
Yeah. And at the beginning of this episode, if I remember to do it, future Frederick, don't forget to edit this into the segment. But you've set aside a coupon code for the TWiP audience if they want to get a discount on these already not expensive bags. They want to knock a little bit more off of the price. What was the code, and how much are you knocking off for them?
Yeah. So the code is TWiP, TWiP. So you go to our website, hexbrand.com, and search it up, find what you want. And when it's time to check out, it'll have a spot for you to put in your discount code. You just enter TWiP. It'll get you 20% off, which is a pretty good discount. We don't discount our stuff all that often. So, you know, we want to support your followers and definitely appreciate the love you give us. So hopefully this is a way that we can give that back. TWiP, 20% off.
All right. Well, we'll leave it right there, Trent. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. And congratulations on all the stuff that you guys are doing with these bags. You know, like I said, if there's one thing that photographers will never agree on, you know, aside from what's the best camera brand or bag, or, you know, or it's going to be the bag, right? So because by design, because bags and this field is completely subjective, right? Everything about it is subjective. What you choose to use as your camera, your lenses, your genre, all that stuff is subjective and unique to you. So if folks haven't taken a look at the HEX brand bags yet, I would encourage them to do so, because for me, I love the minimalist size, you know, kind of stylings of the bags, and I think you and I have a very similar sense of sensibility, right? It's kind of a
it seems modern, that way,
modernist, less is more, functional, Scandinavian, but not IKEA, more expensive, right?
Right. Yeah.
An expensive version of IKEA is what it is.
Right,
So,
right. Yeah.
but
No, that's
cool.
definitely true. But no, appreciate the time, appreciate the support. It's been great talking to you. It's always great talking to you. And I think you're right. I think we're pretty aligned in our kind of view on a lot of this stuff. So hopefully these bags work great for your viewers as well. And yeah, I'm sure we'll have many more conversations in the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we'll leave this one right there. Thank you for coming on. And folks, remember, just go check out the bags over at hexbrand.com. If you see one that tickles your fancy, just remember TWiP, and punch that in. It'll knock 20% off, and you're off into the races. And, if you do end up buying one, comment on this episode or in the YouTube video and let us know what you think about the bag. Do you like it? Is it working for you? What would you change? Is it perfect? All that stuff. And I'm sure this guy over here will be listening to it and watching. So here's your chance to get the perfect camera bag of your dreams constructed. Just buy one and give some feedback. All right.
That's right. So, we love it.
Awesome. All right, Trent, you have a good rest of your day and be safe out there, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Sounds good. You too. Appreciate it. Thank you.
This is TWiP.